In the scrapbook of my memory, there is a page gilded with the unfading gold of the California sun. The hero of that page is my brother-in-law, John. He wasn't my brother by blood, but my wife Sarah's. For a long time in my life, however, the role he played was far more profound than anything blood ties could define. John was the living embodiment of the American dream. He wasn't one of those lucky Silicon Valley types who achieved financial freedom with a single line of code. His success was forged inch by inch with sweat, calluses, and the smell of paint. He came from an ordinary blue-collar family, but with a sheer, unrelenting grit, he had hammered and painted his way through the glitzy facade of Los Angeles to open the door to the middle class. I still remember the first time I met him. It was at a weekend barbecue at Sarah's parents' house. I was just a green kid, fresh out of college, working a junior programmer job at a mid-sized company, completely lost about my future. And then there was John. He rolled into the driveway in a brand new Ford F-150 pickup, the truck bed still holding a few toolboxes from a job site. He hopped out of the driver's seat, tall, with a healthy, sun-kissed tan, well-defined muscles on his arms, and a confident smile that only a man in complete control of his life could have. He stripped off his t-shirt, which had John's Premier Renovations emblazoned on it, and casually tossed it over a chair, revealing the back of his neck, tanned a deeper shade of bronze. He greeted the neighbors loudly, expertly grabbed a beer from the fridge, popped the cap off with his teeth, and chugged half of it in one go. In that moment, the sheer life force radiating from him made me, a pale office worker who sat in front of a computer all day, feel a pang of inadequacy. He was a born leader. At family gatherings, he was always the center of the conversation. He would vividly recount how he handled a picky client in Beverly Hills, how his clever design solved a house's lighting problem, or how he outsmarted a cunning supplier at some building materials market. His stories were rich with detail and passion, as if home renovation wasn't a job, but an art form. My father and mother-in-law would look at him with undisguised pride. Sarah's admiration for her brother was even more palpable. While I was trying to win Sarah's heart, John was like a mountain I had to conquer. At first, he wasn't impressed with this somewhat nerdy, IT kid, his words always carrying a hint of scrutiny and doubt. That changed one day when an old pipe burst in my apartment. I was in a complete panic when Sarah called him over. He just glanced at the problem, instantly diagnosed it, and pulled tools from his omnipotent pickup truck. He had it fixed in less than half an hour. He even took a moment to tighten a loose screw on my bathroom vanity. As he was leaving, he clapped me on the shoulder, sweat dripping from his brow. He grinned and said, "Kid, code can't solve every problem. Remember, a home has to be solid." From that day on, he truly accepted me. John was the biggest hero of our wedding. Sarah's parents were fairly traditional and had high expectations for the ceremony. Sarah and I didn't have much saved up and were stressing about it. At a family dinner, as we were hesitantly discussing the budget, John cut us off. He turned to my father-in-law and said in a tone that allowed no argument, "Dad, times have changed. Sarah's happiness isn't defined by one wedding. Their future is more important." Then he turned to us, pulled a check from his wallet, and pushed it in front of me. "Take this. Consider it the first brick I'm laying for my sister's future home. Keep the wedding simple. Put the money where it counts." It was a check for $50,000. To us, it was a godsend. I never forgot his kindness. So when we finally saved enough to buy our own little house in the LA suburbs, the first person I thought of for the renovation was John. The quotes we got from other contractors were around $150,000 to $160,000, a figure that made us flinch. I cautiously asked John about it. Without a second thought, he showed up with his team. He spent a whole afternoon walking through the empty house with a tape measure and a notebook, muttering to himself. Finally, he gave me a number, $80,000. "John, we can't accept this," I said, a little stunned. He gave my chest a friendly punch and laughed. "You're my brother-in-law. We're family. If you act formal with me, you're looking down on me. I promise you, for $80,000, I'll give you $200,000 worth of results." He was true to his word. For the next few months, he treated our new house like his own personal masterpiece. From the overall layout to the choice of paint colors, down to the laying of each tile, he was hands-on. He would argue with the designer late into the night over a better lighting plan and demand a complete do-over if a worker laid a floorboard with the slightest uneven gap. He'd often be on the dusty construction site, munching on a sandwich while discussing kitchen cabinet handle styles with us. The final result was beyond our wildest dreams. When friends came to visit, they all marveled that we had found a genius designer. But I knew the truth. What we had was a great brother who treated us like family. John was so brilliant back then. His business was booming, his team expanding from a few guys to a few dozen, and the projects he took on grew bigger and bigger. He traded up to a more impressive SUV and bought a larger house in a better neighborhood. We all thought his life would be like the magnificent homes he built, solid, bright, and forever full of hope. If only he hadn't opened that Pandora's box. If only that damned screen, with its flashing green and red numbers, had never entered his life. Perhaps everything would have stayed that way. The collapse began with insignificant details, anomalies we deliberately ignored. By 2022, the shadow of the pandemic was receding, but an economic chill was setting in. I vaguely overheard from Sarah's calls with her mother some worries about John's business. At first, it was just about slow payments from clients. Later, it became disagreements with his business partner. Sarah always downplayed it to me. It's nothing. My brother's company is huge. A little turbulence is normal. I wanted to believe that with John's competence, there was no obstacle he couldn't overcome. But the warning signs grew more frequent. One time, we had a family dinner planned, and John was nearly 2 hours late. When he arrived, he looked haggard, with sunken eyes and messy hair, completely devoid of his usual vigor. At the table, he was uncharacteristically silent, but his phone was constantly in his hand, its light flickering across his face. He would swipe at the screen from time to time, his brow furrowed, occasionally letting out an impatient click of his tongue. "John, what are you looking at? Business?" his father asked with concern. "It's nothing, Dad. Just some new investment opportunities," he answered vaguely, his eyes never leaving the screen. "In this day and age, just working hard is too slow. You have to use your brain, make money with money." That was the first time I heard him use the word investment. I didn't think much of it then, just assuming that as his business grew, he was exploring other fields. The real alarm bell rang that summer. One night, Sarah was very down after a call with her mother. When I pressed her, she finally told me, her voice trembling, that John's company had gone under, and that he was about $150,000 in debt. $150,000? How could it be that much? I was shocked. Hasn't his company always been doing great? "My mom doesn't know the details either," Sarah said, her voice choked with tears. "It seems like a failed investment. My brother said he was scammed, that all the money he put into a project was lost." Scammed? I found it hard to believe. John was one of the shrewdest, most practical people I knew. How could he get scammed? What does he say? He won't say much. Just tells us not to worry, that he can handle it. That weekend, we went to her parents' house. The atmosphere was incredibly tense. John was there, looking like he'd lost a significant amount of weight, sitting on the sofa and chain-smoking, the ashtray at his feet overflowing with butts. He tried to act casual, but his despondence was impossible to hide. I tried to talk to him, to find out what really happened, but he just waved me away. "A small problem. It's almost taken care of." His mother pulled us into the kitchen and whispered, "He sold his truck to barely cover a part of the hole." When we ask him what happened, he just gets angry. Ugh, that kid, always so proud, only sharing good news. In that kitchen, filled with the aroma of food but choked with anxiety, I began to doubt John for the first time. How could a savvy businessman be easily scammed out of $150,000? How could such a proud man be reduced to selling his truck to pay off debts? I had a gut feeling that the truth was far more complicated than a simple, failed investment. Later, I heard some rumors from a friend who was also in the renovation business. He said John's company didn't fail just because of the market. It was because John himself had lost all interest in running it. "I think he got hooked on trading crypto," my friend told me over the phone. Staring at his computer screen all day like a madman. There were problems on job sites, and he was nowhere to be found. I heard he was playing with big money, using high leverage. Isn't that just gambling? The word gambling hit me like a bullet. I told Sarah what I'd heard, and she immediately shot back defensively. "Impossible. Why would my brother gamble? That's what deadbeats do. Your friend must have just heard rumors." Yes, I hoped it was just rumors. I would have rather believed John had just had a business mishap. The word gambling was terrifying. It connected to a bottomless abyss, capable of swallowing everything a person had built, his reason, his reputation, his family. However, reality soon crushed my last shred of naive fantasy. By the fall of 2022, the Los Angeles air still held the warmth of summer, but the atmosphere in our family had already plunged into a deep winter. John's small problem was snowballing. The money from selling his truck was a drop in the bucket and quickly ran out. He started frequently asking his parents for money. First a few thousand, then 10 or 20,000 at a time. Their retirement savings weren't substantial and were soon depleted. I witnessed with my own eyes how the once invincible John became a completely different person. We went to his house once, hoping to help. The house he was once so proud of, which he had designed himself, now felt like it had its soul sucked out. The living room was a mess of pizza boxes and empty energy drink cans. The curtains were drawn tight, and the air was thick with the sour stench of a hangover mixed with despair. John was in wrinkled pajamas, sitting in front of a computer. It wasn't just a computer, It was a command center of 3 massive monitors. On the screens, dense arrays of red and green candlestick charts flickered manically, and streams of data refreshed like waterfalls. His eyes were bloodshot, glued to one of the screens, his fingers clicking neurotically on the mouse. He seemed completely absorbed by the digital world, oblivious to our arrival. "John!" Sarah called out tentatively. He jumped as if pricked by a needle, whipping his head around. His eyes were filled with the irritation and wariness of being disturbed. "What are you guys doing here?" "We came to see you," I said, a chill running down my spine as I looked at him. "I'm fine, doing great," he said, turning back to the screen. He pointed at a rising green line, his tone becoming bizarrely euphoric. "See this? You see this line? It's about to break out. I'm telling you, if I catch this wave, everything I lost before, I'll get it all back. No double, triple." He launched into a rambling lecture, spewing theories we couldn't understand. Blockchain is the future. Decentralized finance will change the world. Peppered with terms we'd never heard, like going long, going short, getting liquidated, buying the dip. He was no longer the down-to-earth contractor we knew, but a fervent, unrecognizable believer in a new religion. He opened an app on his phone to show us the numbers in his account. It displayed a staggering profit, at least several $100,000. "See, this is making money with your brain," he said smugly, but his smile held no joy, only a sick, feverish mania. I noticed his hands were trembling slightly. I knew that profit was a mirage, the occasional treat the house gives you to keep you at the table. If you don't walk away, it can be wiped out in an instant, even turn negative. "John, this is too risky," Sarah said, worried. "Why don't we just stop, take the money out, and start the business over again?" John's face darkened instantly, as if she had crossed a line. "Stop? What do you know? This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. People like you with your dead-end salaries, you'll never understand the logic of this world. You only see risk. I see a ladder to financial freedom," he was practically shouting. We left on bad terms. On the way home, Sarah cried the whole time. A cold fear crept up my spine. I finally understood that my friend was right. John wasn't investing, he was gambling. He was gambling with his life, his future, and his family's happiness. He had been completely captured by the flickering numbers, a slave to the abyss. They say when you gaze into the abyss gazes back. John hadn't just gazed into it, he had dived in headfirst. By early 2023, the winter was especially cold, and the atmosphere in our family had frozen over because of John. We had tried everything to pull him back from the cliff, but nothing worked. He wouldn't listen to any advice. Any attempt to wake him up was seen as an obstacle to him striking it rich. Just as we were about to give up, a turning point seemed to appear. After the holidays, John contacted us. He looked different. He had cut his hair, shaved, and was wearing a clean shirt. He was still haggard, but he at least looked human again. He invited us and his parents to dinner at a decent restaurant. At the table, he offered a profound confession. He admitted that his obsession with cryptocurrency was a mistake, that he had been blinded by greed. He said the $150,000 loss was a bucket of cold water that had finally woken him up. It was a nightmare, Dad, Mom, Sarah, and David. He looked at each of us, his expression so sincere it was impossible to doubt. "I lost my company, my reputation, and I hurt all of you. I was wrong." He was crying. His mother was already wiping her own tears away. Sarah's eyes were red too. Only I remained wary. How much is a gambler's confession worth? Then, he changed the subject and began to lay out his rebirth plan. He said he had completely quit crypto and was determined to return to his area of expertise, construction. "The renovation market is too small, the margins are thin, and the competition is fierce," he said, wiping his mouth with a napkin, his voice regaining its old confidence. "I've identified a new direction, large-scale commercial projects, like building new campuses for tech companies or taking on government contracts for public facility renovations. The profit from one of those projects is more than I used to make in a year." He told us he had already connected with a big shot he knew from his old business days. The man admired his skills and was willing to subcontract some work to him. The only obstacle was the startup capital. "I need money to register the new engineering firm, buy the necessary equipment, and pay the bid bonds," he said, finally revealing his true purpose. "I need $300,000. The air froze. $300,000 was an astronomical sum for a family like mine. He seemed to sense our hesitation and immediately threw out a more tempting offer. He took a beautifully bound business plan from his briefcase. I took it and flipped through. It had articles of incorporation, market analysis, financial projections, and even several official-looking letters of intent with the logos of well-known construction firms. "David, I know it's hard for you to come up with this money," he said, turning his gaze on me, which made me extremely uncomfortable. "So, I'm not asking to borrow money. I'm inviting you to be my partner. This $300,000 will be your investment for a 40% stake in the company. Look here, he said, pointing to the financial forecast. Based on the most conservative estimate, we can make $1 million in profit the first year. As a shareholder, you'll get a dividend of $400,000. In 2 years, you can tell your current boss to get lost. His words were magical, perfectly targeting every middle-class fantasy of wealth and upward mobility. He was no longer a failed gambler, but a savior with a script for redemption, here to deliver us all. John, is this for real? Sarah asked softly, her skepticism already turning to hope. Of course it's for real. John raised his voice. The documents are right here. You can take them to a lawyer. When have I ever lied to you about business? Did I cut any corners when I renovated your house? How much have I helped you in the past? Right now, I just need my family's support to get me through this final hurdle. This isn't just for me, it's for our whole family. He had deftly swapped the sensitive topic of borrowing money for investment and family responsibility. He cast himself as a tragic hero, a prodigal son ready to make a comeback. If we refused, we would become the cold-hearted villains who turned our backs on him. That night, we had the biggest fight of our lives. I was firmly against it. The reasons were simple. We didn't have the money and John's credibility was shot. Sarah, however, believed this was John's only chance, and our family's only chance, to turn things around. David, do you want to be a junior programmer for the rest of your life? Don't you want our kids to go to the best schools and live the best life? She cried. This is my brother. He needs us now. If we help him this one time, he'll be grateful for the rest of his life. We're investing in our future. The next few days were hell. Sarah wasn't speaking to me. My in-laws called me one after another, appealing to both reason and emotion. My mother-in-law cried on the phone, begging me to help John for Sarah's sake and for our unborn child. My father-in-law lectured me like an elder, saying family isn't about accounting, it's about loyalty. I was trapped in this giant web woven from kinship, unable to move. I felt a deep sense of powerlessness. I was at a crossroads. One path led to family strife and alienation, the other to a bottomless, unknown financial black hole. In the end, I gave in. To this day, I cannot forgive my own weakness at that moment. I used our entire $50,000 in savings, and then swallowing my pride, I asked my own parents, relatives, and even my best friends for money. I made up all sorts of excuses. We were expanding our investments, we were buying a new house. Every time I asked, it felt like I was skinning my own dignity alive. My father, a man who had been frugal his entire life, gave me his retirement savings. He patted my shoulder and said, "Son, I trust your judgment. Go for it." When I transferred the $300,000 to John, my hands and feet were ice cold. Staring at the transfer successful notification on my phone screen, I had only one thought. I hope I'm wrong. I hope, this time, he's really turned his life around. For a while after the transfer, John acted like a true entrepreneur. He'd send us progress updates on WhatsApp every day. Today he met with the lawyer about company registration. Tomorrow he was checking out a new office space. The day after, he had a meeting with an equipment supplier. He even sent photos, like a business card design for New Horizon Engineering Limited, or a picture of an impressive-looking industrial park entrance. With each little piece of information, my anxiety slowly subsided. Sarah was ecstatic, practically seeing the year-end dividend checks already. She started browse pictures of mansions and luxury cars online, planning our new life. But after 2 months, John's messages became sparse. I tried to video call him to ask about the company's progress. He declined it and replied with a text. In a meeting, talk later. But later never came. When I texted again, he would brush me off with, "Everything's on track, don't rush me." That ominous feeling rose in my gut again, stronger than ever before. I started to do some digging. I searched for New Horizon Engineering Limited on the California Business Registry website. The result, no such entity found. I did a reverse image search on the picture of the industrial park he had sent me. I discovered it was a promotional photo for the headquarters of a well-known logistics company. My blood ran cold. I showed my findings to Sarah, but she jumped as if I'd stepped on her tail, accusing me of being suspicious and distrusting her brother. "You just can't stand to see him succeed. You're just jealous he can do big business," she yelled at me. Just as our relationship hit rock bottom over these suspicions, Sarah gave birth to our daughter. The arrival of a new life temporarily diluted the tension at home. I was swamped with taking care of my wife and child, and I temporarily pushed the matter of the $300,000 to the back of my mind. I even started to reassure myself, maybe company registration takes time, maybe John was facing some difficulties. Until that afternoon in December. It was a typical California winter day, the sun so bright it felt surreal. I was at home changing my daughter's diaper when Sarah's phone rang. It was her mother. I watched Sarah's expression shift from calm to confusion, to horror, and finally to an ashen gray. The phone slipped from her limp hand and clattered to the floor. She looked up at me, her lips trembling, unable to make a sound. After a long moment, she let out a heart-wrenching scream. "It's over. David, it's all over. My brother, he owes millions." The world started spinning. I rushed over and grabbed the phone. Through the earpiece, I could hear my mother-in-law's chaotic, desperate sobs. The company was fake. He's been gambling the whole time. He lost everyone's money. The debt collectors are already at their door. I immediately called John's phone. It went straight to voicemail. WhatsApp, no reply. I felt like I was going insane. That $300,000 was my future, my family's future, my parents' retirement fund, my friends' trust. All of it was about to vanish into thin air. I paced the house like a caged animal, while Sarah sat collapsed on the floor, weeping uncontrollably. That afternoon stretched into an eternity, every second in agony. The next afternoon, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I answered it, and a voice that was both familiar and strange came through the line. It was John. His voice was hollow and raspy, like an empty shell whose soul had been ripped out. "David," he said. "Where's the money?" I roared into the phone, all reason gone. There was a moment of silence on the other end, then a long, desperate sigh. "I'm sorry," he said. "I'm so sorry. I lied to you all. There was no company, no project. There was nothing. The money." I screamed with every fiber of my being. "It's gone." His voice was as light as the wind, but it hit my heart like a sledgehammer. "I lost it all." Over the next hour, he haltingly told me the whole story. The business plan was a template he downloaded and forged overnight. The letters of intent were carefully crafted in Photoshop. After he got the $300,000, he didn't register a company. He immediately dumped all of it into a high-leverage crypto futures platform. He had wanted to win back everything he'd lost in one massive gamble. At first, he got lucky. The number in his account doubled in a few days. The huge profit drove him deeper into madness. He believed he was the chosen one. Then, one night he couldn't quite explain, the market suddenly reversed. He watched the green line become a plunging red waterfall. He added to his margin, he borrowed from loan sharks. He used every financial instrument he could to fight the market's tide. The result, in a matter of hours, his account was forcibly liquidated. Everything was wiped out. $300,000 evaporated. But that wasn't the end. To win it back, he had used the same lie to scam more money from other friends and business partners. He had even mortgaged his parents' house, borrowing from illegal loan companies at exorbitant rates. All of it, without exception, was thrown into that bottomless black hole. In total, how much did you lose in total? My voice trembled. With the principal, interest, and penalties from the loan sharks, about $4 million. $4 million. The number exploded in my brain like a neutron bomb. It destroyed everything, leaving behind only a silent, irreparable wasteland. I thought that was hell. I didn't realize hell had a lower level. "David." John's voice came again, this time with a bizarre, pleading tone. "You listen to me. There's still one way. One last way. Your house, you still have a mortgage on it, right? We can go to a hard money lender, do a cash-out refi. They can pay off the bank's loan first, and then we can remortgage the house for its full value to get another lump sum. If you just give me that money, I swear, I have experience now. I can definitely win it all back." I didn't wait for him to finish. I hung up and threw my phone against the wall with all my might. It shattered into pieces. I collapsed to the floor, unable to make a sound, as tears streamed uncontrollably down my face. He wasn't just a liar and a gambler. He was a complete and utter, soulless monster. He had already lost his own life, and now, he wanted to drag our entire family down to be buried with him.